it's Sufi shrines, universities, doing things, but at the same time, it was a very dangerous, threatening environment, so to speak. Then there's other places like in China and Japan where it was, just an extraordinary pleasure to get out, meet the people, learn about their cultures, and also to change their perceptions about the United States. I know that you guys, most of you will be going off to college soon, or if not, you're going to be here for another year or two. I just want to tell you briefly about what we offer at the State Department. We've got great internships for when you're in college. And you'll find that when you get to college, different from when I was there, now everybody, it seems, is doing internships. And the State Department is one of the most popular places to do it. We offer hundreds of internships back in Washington, D.C., working on issues from human rights, women's empowerment, nuclear nonproliferation, intelligence, counterterrorism, economic affairs, Latin American affairs, Asian affairs, just every issue you can think of. The environment, working on climate change treaties, things like that. Every issue you can think about, there's a bureau or an office in the State Department working on that. And we offer hundreds of internships there. We also offer hundreds of internships at our embassies overseas. So it's a great opportunity to experience firsthand what it is to be a diplomat. And our interns, everybody I've met that's done an internship at the State Department is always amazed at the responsibility that, because a lot of times you go in for an internship and you're kind of like the gopher. But with the State Department, because of the way we function, everybody's moving every couple of years. So usually the office is shorthanded. No matter where you go, they're shorthanded during the summer. So when the intern comes in, if the intern is willing and able to step up and take on more responsibilities, they go to, they'll be note takers for the ambassador, for the assistant secretary. They'll be going over and managing visits of congressmen or senators. They'll be involved in a lot of really interesting and important work. So I've got some brochures, and I'll give those to you before you leave. Also, if you're going to be in high school for a year or two more, we have internships, not internships, but we have exchange programs. And we have an academic year exchange program with Germany, for example. It's called the Bundestag Congress Congressional Exchange Program. We also have language exchange programs, which are designed to encourage people to learn difficult languages like Chinese, Russian, Turkish, Hindi, Korean. So, so I have these brochures on these high school exchanges. And if you're going to be around in high school for a little while longer, take a look at these. These are great programs. And again, the importance of these is to get out there and experience it, see if this type of lifestyle, this type of travel, this type of experience is for you. So, I want you guys to feel free to ask questions anytime. Let me tell you some of the stuff I've done. Just to give you, I was in Pakistan recently. I was there when Osama bin Laden was killed. I was there during a number of terrorist attacks, both against where I was and other places within Karachi. Before that, I was Consul General in Bogota, Colombia. There we worked to free hostages that had been held by the FARC guerrillas, the left-wing Revolutionary Army, that had captured 3 Americans and kept them in captivity for over 5 years. I was fortunate enough to be there and be able to work with extensive cooperation with the Colombian government. We eventually freed these men. Also, I've been on the ground when I'm woken in the middle of the night when I was in Colombia at plane disasters. You go out and help Americans, their planes have crashed, see if they get proper treatment, they get evacuated to the United States. I visited many Americans in jail, not too much older than you, that find their way into some pretty difficult circumstances through some bad choices. And the U.S. Embassy is who they turn to for help. And I've done a lot of that. So, you guys have any questions? Yeah.
What was it like the first time you were abroad in a situation? What was it like the first time you were abroad and you had like a difficult situation?
Well, Usually you're there because you're the U.S. government. You're the representative of the U.S. government. So you have all of this weight behind you, all of this these different agencies. Like when I was in Bogota, this plane crashes, and young woman, not much older than yourself, just out of college, she calls Mr. Boss, this plane's crashed, what do we do? So come get me, get the guards, get their own car, we drive out, it's about 25 miles outside of Bogota. And here's a 747 with about 3 pieces burning. And I'm thinking, body parts, it's just going to be a horrific experience. Well, it turns out it was a cargo plane. So it was only 8 people on board, it was 8 Americans. And somehow, it was extraordinary to see, somehow they all survived. But the locals had just come, this plane had fallen out of the sky, and they just picked up people and disappeared with good intentions. So trying to find them, but then talking about how I reacted, the thing was that the first thing when a plane goes down, the first thing they think of Washington is terrorism. So I'm standing in the middle of this cow pasture, my cell phone, and pretty soon, you have the Department of Defense, the CIA, the NTSB, the White House. Everybody's on this conference call. And the wonderful thing about working for the U.S. government is they're all standing by going, what can I do to help you help those people? And that's pretty, it's a pretty moving experience when you're sitting there and there's anything you need, we're willing to move to help you. And so that's one of the great things about working for it. I think also the great thing about the State Department is you move up. Everybody comes in at the same level, but it's kind of like the military. You come in as a lieutenant, then you're a captain, then you're a major, then you're a colonel, and eventually a general. And it's like that in the State Department. You don't call it those ranks, but you come in and you gradually move up. So as you move up, you're taking on more and more responsibility, and you're prepared for it. When you reach a certain level and you are making those decisions or you are directing operations, you've had an opportunity to observe and be part of it along the way. So, at least for me, I felt very comfortable at that point saying, here's what we're going to do. Here's what I need done.
What was it that you did before you were an ambassador and you worked overseas?
Well, I'm not an ambassador. I'm a foreign service officer. I worked in finance. I'd done an MBA or a master's degree in international business. So I was working overseas. I was working in Australia. I was working for a financial firm.
So are there any way that we can already take the initiative and start working towards getting where you are now? Like, what do you suggest that we start doing?
Well, I think, the internships are a great opportunity that you'll have when you get into college. Also the exchanges, learning language, learning difficult languages that are, for instance, Urdu or Arabic or Chinese, Mandarin. These are critical strategic languages. I think also getting out there, experiencing, by doing either internships, personal travel, exchange programs. You'll have an opportunity when you're in university to do semesters abroad or years abroad. I think all of those things, and I think it's also, it helps too as to where you decide to do that. A lot of people, I'm going to London. Well, it's probably a little weirder if you go to Cleveland or something in London. But, I think you think about it, Japan, China, some of these places that are not threatening, but at the same time you're going to have a truly different experience. Yes?
I'm sure every day is completely different for you, but what is like a day in your job like?
Well, where I am now, like my last job in managing, I managed 350 people in the house. And managing people, it's like, it's probably like a teacher, and you've got 30 students, you're trying to manage them, and everybody's got different issues, so you're doing that. At the same time, Pakistan was and is just a huge focus of the United States government in terms of terrorism, in terms of the stability of their nuclear weapons, in terms of how they're influencing Afghanistan, things like that. So, I was constantly, in the middle of the night, oh, I'm going over to the White House. What do you think we should do about, it's like 3 in the morning, I'd wake up and go, where am I? And literally, I'd be on the phone with somebody really important, and I wouldn't know who it was. But, so, that's the type of thing you're doing. You're managing that, you're managing expectations, you're trying to influence government officials. Karachi was, this huge city of 22 million people, and it's balkanized. And that, I mean, that you have the Pashtuns over here who have immigrated down from the north or from Afghanistan. Then you have the Sindhis, then you have the Baloch, you have the Punjabis, and they all have their different political parties, and they also have their different militias. And it's basically a city that is beyond the control of the central government. But one of the things about being a U.S. diplomat, regardless of your rank, or your age or anything like that, is people want recognition and validation of their legitimacy and their efforts from the United States. So I had access to all these different factions and could actually intercede. So, that type of stuff I would be doing, reaching out to different things. My next door neighbor was the governor of the central bank, so I tried to influence him to follow a little bit more rational economic policies. And another thing when I got there were these massive floods of 2010. 1/4 of all of Pakistan was underwater. 20 million people were displaced, and they're all right in my district. So, pretty soon the task force showed up, aircraft carrier and others. I was working with the U.S. Navy, which they have a helicopter base 200 miles inland, rescuing Pakistanis, delivering millions of pounds of aid, humanitarian aid, and trying to, again, change the perspective of Pakistanis that we are, totally anti-Islamic. And actually, who were not in the government, but finding out what their position would be should they come into the government. So she was out doing that. So one day she comes to me, she goes, "Hey, boss, I was out last night, and I met this woman, and she's got a shelter for battered women, and can we give her some money?" And I'm like, we're working like around the clock, and I'm like, "What? Can we give her $10,000? So, I look at her, Mary, we're the U.S. government, $10,000. Nobody's even going to read the memo. You got to think about this, plan it out, and ask for at least $50,000. This is all on her own mission. I said, you do it, and I'll contact the assistant secretary, and I'll push it, but you got to back it up. I don't have time to do this. And you have to understand that in Pakistan, like here, if you go, to Santa Ana, there's a shelter for battered women. If you're the boyfriend or the husband, when you show up like 100 yards from that place, say I'm here for my wife or whatever, it's a free fee for the police. They can just come down and beat you, no one's going to care. Because nobody would do that. You have to be a crazy person to go approach a battered women's shelter here in the United States. Pakistan, the people that open up battered women's shelters are like heroes. Because not only the husbands show up, they show up with the police. And the police will grab the woman and give her back to her husband. And so, what these people are doing, what they're doing here is fabulous, but they're really putting their lives on the line. But my point was, by the time that Mary left, 6 months later, she had gotten funding for 6 NGOs that were supporting battered women, and she got something like $750,000 that the U.S. government was. So, one of the things about our job is we're over there, we're the eyes and ears of the U.S. government. The U.S. government wants to do good. The American people want to do good. I'm not saying it always comes off that way. We're human beings and we have our own foibles and we make mistakes. And sometimes things don't work out as we envision, but you can have a huge impact.
Who's the Secretary of State? The Secretary of State?
John Kerry?
Besides the foreign service in the State Department, what other careers are there in that department?
Well, foreign service officers are the ones that serve, you spend about 60–70% of your career overseas. And you go over for, like I said, 2–3 year tours. Depending on, you manage your own career, some people go over and go back to Washington, we're headquartered in Washington. So, but also we have, tens of thousands of civil servants, the members of the civil service. And they're domestically based, they don't travel overseas. And 95% of our civil service jobs are in Washington D.C. The exception would be like the passport agency in Los Angeles, in San Diego, but not really policy-based offices domestically, except in Washington D.C.
How did you decide this is what you wanted to do?
Well, I always like to travel. Like when I was, I graduated from Colonel High School, me and my buddy, we went down to Coast Highway. This is a long time ago because you'll notice by our means of transportation, we hitchhiked to Alaska. And it was just a different time. But then I came back after Orange Coast. I took another year off, traveled through Europe. And then, so I've always been drawn to it. And then when I was going, when I went away to Berkeley, I thought I'll go to Berkeley and I'll become a lawyer and I'll go to law school. That's what I thought. That's the path. And but when I was there, a good friend of mine, his brother had gone to Thunder Group, and talking to his brother, and that's it. That's what I want to do. It's international. So I was thinking more international business. But when you're overseas, you meet people at the embassy, and what they're doing was just something that I liked.
You went students first. Did you have a question?
Yeah, okay, so despite the, other than the common majors of like in foreign service or international business, what other majors are there that could be?
We're not looking for any certain major. And I'll leave one of these brochures here, and you can look at it. What we're looking for, this is about the selection process. And what there's a general test, the written test, and that's about U.S. history, U.S. culture, economics. It's kind of like a glorified SAT. But then if you're successful in that, you're invited to the oral assessment. In the oral assessment, they have 13 dimensions that they're testing you for. And if you read them, it's like composure, cultural adaptability, motivation, initiative and leadership, objectivity, resourcefulness, working with others. These are not academic pursuits. They're characteristics of an individual. So we take people from all different backgrounds. I've had people from Harvard Law School work for me. There are people that study nuclear engineering at Berkeley work for me. And it's the type of person that we're looking for rather than somebody with specific knowledge. Because I've met people. I have a doctorate degree in ancient Chinese history and I speak perfect Mandarin. I think, oh great. But then you get in a situation where, and he's not very good with people. He's not good about how he projects to the public or working with other people. And when it's a real stressful situation, like Karachi, when you're living and working, we were working 7 days a week. The joke was, thank God it's Friday, only 2 more working days till Monday. And we were literally 16 hours a day. And this is unusual. I'm not saying it's like this in every foreign post by any means. But, if somebody's acting weird or crazy or, annoying, it is amplified by those pressure cooker situations. So that's what they're looking for. Looking for people who can get along with others. So I want to work with this person is basically, I think, the question they're asking.
To what extent can you choose what country you go to?
Well, right from the start, after you go through all the testing process, and you offer you a job, you get your top secret security clearance, you come in, and they call it A100. It's the orientation class. It's the first thing you do. It's like 3 months long, and they teach you all about the department and all about everything. So you're in this class. So actually, just a few weeks into it, somebody comes walking in and he's got a list. He's got like 200 jobs everywhere in the world you can think. And you go, London, Paris, Madrid, just like I thought it would be. And you think, this is great. And then as he's walking out, he'll go, oh, you can only have, he goes, first, give me your top 20 choices, and rank them in order. What's your number one, give me your top 20. Now, only 2 of them can be in Europe. 3 of them have to be in Africa. And 2 of them have to be hardship. So 4 have to be in Latin America. And all of a sudden, you're looking at your list, and you're going, Kinshasa? Really? But so they work it so that they fill all of these jobs. And the key to it is all through the process, I have a presentation, almost like on every slide it says, worldwide availability is a requirement. When it comes down to it, you have to be, theoretically, and you'll sign anyone that you're available to serve anywhere in the world. And they're not going to handcuff you and send you to Afghanistan, Pakistan. But, you're supposed to, it's great when you do the Londons, Parises, and Madrids, but you also have to do your fair share of places that are challenging. Now, me, I prefer them. I like the working environment, I like the collegiality, I like the immediacy of the decision making, I like that it's important policy work, you're working in London, John Kerry can call the foreign minister and say, hey, what's going on, where he can't necessarily know what's going on in Karachi.
How does the management of a consulate or embassy work?
Well, at an embassy, it's the ambassador. You serve at the pleasure of the ambassador. He's personal representative of the President of the United States. And the next person is called the Deputy Chief of Mission, DCM. Now, when the ambassador is out of the country, the DCM becomes a charge d'affaires. And then it's broken down into different sections. There's a political section, which works to influence the government, also report to Washington on developments or policies of the government, and on their stance, maybe on issues like the UN or on human rights, work to institutionalize important issues like human rights, rule of law. The economic section, again, reports on economic developments in the country, tries to influence important decision makers. There's a consular section, which take care of Americans that are in trouble. That's the #1 priority of any embassy overseas. And also issues visas. There's hundreds of thousands, millions of people who want to come to the United States. And after 9/11, they all have to be interviewed in person. So managing this huge influx of people through in a highly secure environment is a real challenge. Then there's the management section. They're the ones, it's like here, it's like if you go to a university, you say, oh, name me a job at a university, you say, professor. Well, if you go to UCLA, probably 5% of the people who work there are professors. The rest of the people are keeping the lights going, doing human resources, gardening, all this stuff, health workers, food servers. So the management function at an embassy is the same way. You're trying to keep the whole thing working, make sure people have places to live, the lights on. Sometimes that can, just getting water. In Karachi, getting water was a huge challenge. And then we have another area that's called public diplomacy, public affairs. There's 2 parts to that. One's cultural, we're doing exchanges of students, managing Fulbright fellows, managing English language programs, bringing over, we brought over rap groups in Karachi, rock bands, and they love that, and we bring over, artists and writers. And then the other part of public diplomacy is managing the media. And every time I went out, if I went to a university like this to do, talk to students like this, if we would do total secret, by this time there would be 100 photographers, journalists outside the gates of the school waiting for me. So I'd always have a press attaché, and she'd run out and say, okay, he's just here to talk about careers today. So I don't want you asking about killing Muslims or what's going on in Afghanistan or drones or anything, So don't ask me anything deep. Shoot. And then as soon as I walk out there, why are you killing Muslims?